Check out the Rugby Rant podcast show.
Yeah, Scott Barrett knows where it's at. This is the real stuff, the goods, and we're in episode 243 here at the Rugby Rant podcast show, edging ever so more closely to 250, almost that quarter mark to get to it, get to 1,000. That would be impressive to get to that spot. We'll see what happens, but let's not talk about us. Let's talk about the fan experience, because that's what this show is going to be about today. If you have been a rugby fan of any sort, the last 3 weeks, excuse me for saying it this way, but I can think of no other way to say it, has been like a rugby orgasm, right? I mean,
Yes.
like you have a minimum of 7, 8, 10 games every weekend, internationals, across the park. And just some phenomenal games that have been such a joy to watch, both in the men's, the women's, and even in the development grades. It's been awesome.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, I would say the only challenge now is like, what streaming service are you finding what on?
Yeah,
and am I staying up late till 3:30 in the morning, or
right.
am I waking up at 3:30 in the morning? Right, like because there's games on. Across 3 different leagues, 22 countries playing. It's I take relief in the fact that I can just watch replays the rest of the week, because I know I can't catch them all. So
1,000%. This is not Pokemon. We cannot catch them all at the same time, but
right.
I am very grateful for streaming when streaming works. Like, let's be honest, there's been some hiccups recently, so
Yeah, a little disappointing on the 2 matches for our senior women in South Africa.
Yep.
But we've been able to catch the World Juniors Championships and some of the the U18s and things like that. So, and the U20 women, we'll talk about that in a little bit. So, and of course, all the internationals, from the northern versus southern hemisphere and the tier 1 nations to tier 2 nations. It's been absolutely awesome. So if you've been a fan of rugby, you have to have loved the last 3 weeks. I don't know what we're going to do, until August and we get some more rugby back on the paddock. So, but let me introduce our guests before we get too thick into the weeds. We've got, for another turn around the rugby sun and the Rugby Rant podcast show, you got AAA, not to be confused with AARP. That's me. She's a MLR super fan, has been a fan of Utah and is now a fan of Chicago because she is originally from Chicago, and she is a rugby ambassador, of sorts, kind of on she's on the rugby advisory board member, if I'm not mistaken. And, we call ourselves the rugby ambassadors. We're this kind of self-appointed elite group of people. And we're talking about none other than Ashley Aardsma.
That's me. Thanks for having me back. I'm glad I haven't been blacklisted yet.
No, of course not. I mean, I blacklist Scott every once in a while because his use of foul language and the F-bombs, but you're always welcome in it. And it's been so much fun this season because Ashley and I have actually connected at a couple of games, not only in Nashville, she's wearing the shirt, but also at the final. And we partied till all hours of the morning after the final too. I think it was a 4:30 a.m. I arrived in my bed. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, I didn't get home till I think 5. I think we got back. Yeah, it was good. Took me a while to recover from that one, but worth every minute.
Yeah, it certainly was, and my AARP card membership certainly showed wear on that day. And then we've got a new ranter to join the crew, Paul Kennard.
Kennard,
right?
Yes,
Kennard. Sorry, Kennard. All right, it's a short N. Kennard. Nerd. That guy died just recently, right? The guy that was in Revenge of the Nerds with the cross-eyed and the wild hair.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Anyway, Paul Kennard, founder of the A-Team, or one of the founders of the A-Team, which is the Anthem official fan supporters group, MLR advisory board member as well, and an overall rugby fan. I mean, the level to which this guy supports rugby is amazing. He before we jumped on the show, he was talking about some of the internationals he's traveled to and some of the plans he has for Australia. So it's an amazing commitment to the sport. Paul, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I do feel like I have to qualify in these situations that I am a super fan. I have never played. I don't know if you guys ever sort of like feel that pressure or feel that moment in a conversation when I think it also doesn't help that I'm like 6'7". So I think people really want me to have played rugby, and they're like, "Oh, well, like you definitely played, didn't you?" And I'm like,
"Yeah, I was going to say you would have been great." Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Like you could have been useful, right? Like, yeah. But no, I have to fall back on the fact that I actually didn't get introduced to rugby until 2019 through my wife's family. My wife is dual citizen, American and England. We found ourselves at her family home about 45 minutes north of Bath, and I walked into the family home, and I was handed the rugby ball right behind you there that you sort of see,
Gilbert,
and a Bath jersey, and was kind of told right away that if you're going to be in this family, like here are your teams. And,
I knew I loved Katie for a reason.
yeah. So I just dove in, and probably at first it was a little bit of like, how do you have conversations with your in-laws? And then it just became, this is the best game ever, the best community. Yeah. I just can't believe I didn't find this. I both feel blessed to have found it and disappointed that it took me so long.
Yeah.
So,
which I think is like even extra. Like I played in university, right? Like Rob's played. Like I think fans that come in who haven't played, who literally happens to like that, to me is more. There's more power to that.
There's value.
Like, I played. There's so much to that. So like. I appreciate it. I don't think you need to qualify it. If anything, it's a bigger talking point. Like I didn't play and I love this game and there's so much value to this. Like I think that's super cool. So
I appreciate that.
I'm glad you found our family.
I appreciate it. I think sometimes I sort of come across like the later in life or like religious convert who's like just a little bit more excited.
Too late.
Right. He's like a little bit more into it than the person who's just born into Catholicism. I'm like, Catholicism is the best, right? Like,
which we need you. Like we need that energy. That's the whole point of all of this, is that kind of that refresher. It's like bringing somebody in at 60 minutes. Like we need that energy change. Like that's what subs are for.
Super sub. He's a super sub, super fan.
We all play a role. So
and I think, as people who have played rugby, I mean, I've been involved in the game since I was 24 and I'm 55. So for quite some time. But sometimes we get into the game and we've been involved in for so long, we look at it rather myopically. Whereas when we get a fresh set of eyes, people who are new to the game, people who are lovers of sports, people like Paul, who come into the game, have a fresh perspective that perhaps we don't necessarily think about. I mean, my wife's the same way. I mean, she didn't start becoming a fan of the game really until, later as I, continued playing. And then particularly when our son played, that's when she really was well steeped, and she brings a great perspective. So we love to have people like Paul joining our fandom. And clearly from his intentions in 2027, he is a fan. And it's always nice when your wife's family supports it, or your significant other supports it too. Because then, like the 24th, when the doubleheader in Geodis down in Nashville, like I would love to go, but it's my wife's birthday. There ain't no way in hell I'm getting down there for that. There's no
I'll
way
excuse you. I'll allow it.
I cannot sell it.
I'll give you an example. So my wife is in like all the way. So we were sitting on the couch like watching something. I was talking about it'd be really great to go to a Six Nations game. And then within like 2 minutes, Katie's like on the couch next to me. She's like, "Yeah, I just bought England-Italy tickets in Rome. I hope you're good with it." I'm like, yes.
Can you guys adopt me? Can I just be part of your family? I'll move to North Carolina. It's fine.
Yeah.
So it is.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's awesome because she didn't play either, and I also sort of say that like there's something about things that you have in your marriage where you're both kind of like on the same level at.
Yep.
Right. There's a lot of things in your marriages where like, you're just different places. Whereas this one, it's like, oh no, it's all brand new. We're learning together. We're asking each other questions after each match. We're like, well, do you hear what that person said? Like, what do you think that means? And like, it's just been a really awesome thing for us as well. And Ashley, you've been discussed at our household a number of times. So yeah, so
I love you guys.
All right.
I was lucky enough to meet Paul and Katie at the championship when we did the advisory board meeting downtown Chicago. And it was a blessing. I'm like, Katie, I don't know if you know this, but like, I'm now attached to you and you're stuck with me for literally ever. So like, you didn't ask for this, but it's happening.
Awesome.
Kind of like how I got involved in the ambassador group. Like, it's all the same.
Yeah, just don't leave. Like any of this.
Yeah, it's just part of it.
They can't make it. They can't make it.
Yeah.
That's really cool, and it's a great way to think about it, Paul. I love it, and congratulations on finding a great sport, a great community, and there's always a place for you. And I just have one question on the heels of all that, Paul. When's your wife going to join the Rugby Rant?
Oh, actually, I mean, I would. She's far better at everything in life than me. So,
That's a high compliment.
Well,
Katie's amazing.
She is.
I love her.
Yeah. So I think the next time you're looking for, you want to do something like an all women panel or something of that sort.
Yes.
I think you got your people right here. So that's
100%. 100%. We're going to have to make that happen. All right. So let's get trucking on here, because folks, today we've got an awesome episode, and I'm really looking forward to this one. As I said, episode 243, and we're looking to talk about this matchup of the United States versus Spain. It was the third matchup in the summer test series. We're going to kind of explore this match, give our own analysis and thoughts on the match itself. And then we're going to kind of turn the page and look generically and generally at the three match series that's part of the Nations Cup Championship for Tier 2. And so we're going to talk about the U.S.'s performance, not necessarily on the rest of the games, because we did that last week, but just general takeaways. Like, we're going to give the Eagles a grade, each of us, and we're going to substantiate that grade with some kind of supportive evidence as why we gave it a grade that we did. So that's what's in store, folks, for this episode of the Rugby Rant. But we're not going to quite get to the rant just yet, because as you guys know, we always like to do a little bit of around the pitch just to talk about stuff that flew out under the radar. And we'll get to that in just uno momento. All right, there we go. Around the pitch. I'm going to start first with the guy on my left. Actually my right, but on the screen it looks like it's my left. So anyway, I'm going to give it to our new guy, Paul. Paul, what do you got for around the pitch?
So I got to say, so I went to the Charlotte match. Charlotte's my hometown. There's not a match that's going to happen here that I'm not going to be at. The thing that stood out for me there was, Zimbabwe showed up when it came to the fan experience, the tailgate. They had vendors, they had food, everybody was inviting. It was music, it was celebration. The fan, like during the game, were lighting the place up. I was hoping going into Cary that, okay, it's a bigger stadium. We just had 2 wins in a row. It was going to kind of carry some of that momentum in. Not the same kind of tailgate experience. We did do, the thing that kind of always draws the rugby crowd in was just have a couple of coolers of beer and just start offering them to people as they walk by. So we did develop. Yeah, exactly. It's, who knew you could buy food?
It's a track.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So we met a bunch of people that way. People were excited to meet us. A lot of folks wearing rugby gear from the last 30 years. So it seemed like it was an event that brought out a lot of people who probably aren't regulars. It talked about MLR with folks who didn't know that, 2 hours away, there's an MLR team, which was exciting and part of being, an ambassador. The facility was incredible. I think there were about 7,300 or so people in attendance. And I got to tell you, it was a hot day. So, it wasn't one of those things where you just enjoyed being out in the weather. It was just a muggy North Carolina kind of
not in North Carolina.
Yeah, just like my butt's just a little too stuck together right now. Right. So the folks that were there really wanted to be there. The momentum was good. The crowd was good. There were things like people doing the wave, right? It was like, oh man, this is, this has some Prim League like feel to it in America, right? Like this is exciting. All the way up till after the match, we find ourselves at the hotel bar, which is really just the Hyatt Place lobby, where there's like one clerk who's both checking people in and trying to get people drinks. And there's
classic Hyatt Place.
Yeah, exactly. Like just
classic Hyatt
yeah. Despite having this big Nations Cup like welcome flag at the front, they're illfully unprepared for 20 rugby players.
1,000%. Yeah.
Right. So the guy, so we bring our coolers in there and we just start opening up, handing people beers, let alone now we're friends with 20 people.
There you go.
We didn't run out of alcohol.
Yeah, well, thankfully they sell it everywhere. So it's found myself getting to talk with Paul Sheehy, the owner of Old Glory, a former Eagle himself from 1991. He's got 4 caps for World Cup, right? Matt McCarthy,
one of my favorite guys in the owners in the league. I mean, just a top-notch class man.
Yeah, absolutely. And we spent, hours together, right? Talking fan experience, future rugby, these about himself. I got to meet Tim Brown, right? Another sort of, known legend, mountain of a man in the.
I was going to say he's as big as his personality, which is I didn't realize that until I met him actually in person at the MLR final.
The interesting thing about him is, and I hope maybe somebody out there ever explains this, and they go, he's a mountain of a man, but I have no better way of describing him, but sweet. Like he's genuinely like a very sweet, nice person. Yeah. Right. Like
he's a salesman.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, I'm not saying he's saccharine. I'm just saying, right. He is a salesman.
I work in outside sales. Not all salespeople are sleazy.
You're generally sweet too, Ashley.
Yeah. No, I mean, he was sharing stories of his,
I got to say this, Paul. Ashley, I watched you until 5 o'clock after the final, and I'll just say that and leave it all right there.
Yeah.
I love rugby.
So I'll just sort of say this: if you were watching the game from home or from a bar or streaming it someplace, you weren't getting the real experience. It was a game that both of you should have been at. I think you would have seen a level of enthusiasm for USA Rugby. What I saw from Paul and Pat and Tim were 3 people who were energized for USA Rugby in a way that, again, I got no context, so I have to take them when they say, like, holy shit, I'm incredibly surprised. Like, there's momentum here. Like, there's here.
Well, and it's for good reason. I don't want to get too thick into the weeds because I know Ashley's got some really great stuff to talk about, but it's for good reason. I mean, Tim and Paul personally have invested ungodly amounts of time in some of the players that played in that match, from Jack Isacaro and to Corey Daniel. And, you just go down the list of players that played for Old Glory or been involved in Old Glory at some time, both Tim and obviously Paul, deep roots in Old Glory. They should be incredibly proud of that fact and incredibly proud of what has been achieved because in part they're responsible for it. So, without question, what a great vibe. It sounds awesome. I'm sorry I missed it for sure. So, all right. So, Ashley, I know you got some great stuff. You're going to be talking about some things that are happening here coming up in the Sevens world.
Yeah, I would say Sevens Rugby Out West is going to pop off here in the next month or two. So we do have the NAI, which is the North American Invitational. It is the largest youth rugby Sevens fest. So that's happening July 31st through the August 1st, that weekend here in Salt Lake. So local, super awesome, super excited. And then we do also have the just Utah rugby, like the D1s. That season starts first Saturday in September, which is September 5th. And then over in Glendale, next door in Colorado, we have Rugby Town Sevens, which is an annual Sevens tournament in Glendale, Colorado, just outside of Denver. It's one of those peak Sevens weekends, games all day, but it's 3 days of fast-paced, high-scoring rugby. And so A lot of cool sevens season oriented stuff going on right now. So, make what you can.
Well, I got to tell you, it's great to see that Rugby Town is carrying on the torch. Unfortunately, I think sevens has taken a backseat over the last couple of years at what was kind of some showcases of showcase events throughout the United States. When you go back to the, the NCR back in Philly, and obviously the Vegas sevens. I mean, there has been some phenomenal sevens events put on in the United States, and it seems to have gone by the wayside. It's good. And it's good to see that Rugby Town is carrying on that torch, and it's a great event, and it's a featured event that should continue to be a showcase event, at least in the sevens world. So that's awesome. And I love to hear about youth rugby, especially at the sevens level.
Yeah, we just, the more it's introduced at a young age, like, so my undergrad was PE. I was a PE teacher. So I've always been about movement education, right? My professional degree is physical therapy. Like, I'm all about movement. We know how healthy it is. We know how important it is for oxygen, to transmit through the brain. So it improves learning, like just movement. And like kids know what they're interested in. And I feel like some of their voices get kind of pushed aside. So the more variety that they can have, and getting in with these youth and knowing how like we can teach them safe techniques as kids, that'll carry into, there's just we underestimate how cool our youth are in this country. So youth rugby, always sevens, 15s, whatever it is, move, just be mobile and active. And I'm biased towards rugby, obviously, but
get out.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. And I love seeing that for fans in upcoming episodes. I'm hoping to get a representative, Carrie Cowdery from it's from Ridge Rugby Academy, which is a new academy that started in Sparta, Michigan. We're going to get her on to talk about what she's been doing up there and some of the youth rugby efforts here in the western part of the state of Michigan. But that's for another episode. Again, this episode, we're going to start getting into the thick of it about the United States and Spain, and then talking overall about this 3-series contest that are a part of the Nations Cup Championship, and just, again, giving our Eagles a grade in this tournament thus far. But we're going to do that just after these words from one of our sponsors, Macron. So, yeah, once again, we'd like to thank Macron, Tim Brown, more specifically. Paul, you talked about him. He's been a super big supporter of the show. The courtesy of Macron and Tim, we were able to give out some swag to the winners of our Scrummy contest of the MLR. So congratulations to the winner. Ryan E won. He's deeply cemented in that kind of not gambling, but certainly, the pick'em contests and things like that. So congratulations to him. He got a great shirt. And I'm getting a photo of that up soon, but a great jersey. It is a Sail Shark signed jersey from 2023. So kudos to him. Kudos, to Tim and to Macron for all that they do. And of course, we'd also like to thank Rugby Now for all that they do. Again, Rugby Now, if you need your goods, maybe you got a sevens tournament coming up, maybe got, your 15 season is on the horizon, and you need to get, new boots, some new kit, some off the field garb, you can get it through Rugby Now. They have some great kit. They have awesome boots. The women's boots have just come out, the Adidas ones that Alona Mar has been pushing. Those they have in stock. And if you order by 5 p.m. Eastern time on a business day, you'll have your goodies within 2 to 3 days. They ship out literally that day. So use code RANT15 to get 15% off. And if you spend over $200, you get free shipping, baby. So with that, we're going to get into the thick of it here. Let me just put our graphic up. What are we going to be talking about? Episode 243, U.S. Summer Test Series. We're 3-0. How do we grade the Eagles' performance? So we're going to be getting to that, and then we'll obviously preempt that with talking about this Spain game. So let's start off the Spain game. Obviously, USA versus Spain, 29-22. Really, it was a fun game to watch. There was some back and forth affair. We're going to get into it. I'm going to stop talking. I'm going to give my guests an opportunity to give their rant about this game. So I'm going to, I started off with Paul around the pitch, but I'm going to go with Ashley here to lead off her thoughts about this matchup between the United States and Spain.
It's really fascinating to watch the evolution of this men's 15s team, because you can tell there's a cohesiveness that's building. And so like the Spain game being the third game in the series, we've seen, that big comeback against Portugal and the game against Zimbabwe. So you get into this little ooh, and then it just there's a cohesiveness and they're working through it, but you can see it. You can see the wheels are turning and there's this connection happening. And so selfishly, I wish there were more games because we're not done, and I feel like the Spain game really showed their grit, their tenacity, to go down towards the end there. And there's there's that set of panic. Are we going to pull this off? And there's a sense of ease of, we know we will, we're communicating well, we're figuring out where everybody's at. And I'm actually getting the chills talking about it. I'm really, really excited about the cohesiveness of and the Spain game was kind of a recent pinnacle of that. So those are my initial thoughts.
I hear you. It's interesting you say that. I kind of had jot down some similar notes, and I think that's one of the things that culturally within this group has been awesome to see, is the fact that they don't panic, when they get down a little bit, and they have confidence that they can come back, within those last 10 to 15 minutes, score points and put themselves back in the plus column. So
yep.
You're not wrong there. I think that's and that's contagious, as it's great to see that happen, because then that feeling catches fire and it becomes a part of your DNA. And we're hitting our stride, as far as when we want to have that feeling as we head to 2027. Paul, you were there, you watched firsthand, you had an opportunity to kind of see the whole field that us that were watching on TV didn't get a chance to see. What were your takeaways from this win by the United States?
So I'll start with saying that my level of excitement for Charlie Abel being in this match was probably a little bit too. I was probably a little bit too.
No such thing, Paul. No such thing.
Yeah, we're all jock sniffers at heart, baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's true. That's true. That's true, Ashley.
So I think he's one of these guys that I'm rooting for him as a person as much as I'm rooting for him as a rugby player, right? I met him at the Hounds anthem game in Chicago. He didn't dress for the match. He was up in the lounge. I went up to him and just said, "Hey, listen, man, I drove a long way to see you play, and I'm just disappointed you're not playing." He gives me a big hug. I got my anthem gear on. He's got his daughter with him. It was, we talked for a minute. There was nothing about that situation that this guy is thinking at all about the fact that there I am in an anthem gear and I'm chatting with him. So I think at that moment, I fell slightly in love with Charlie. I've done a couple of Instagram posts. Yeah. So I think I came into the match with a lot of excitement. I think the context to these matches is also really important. That these guys are all professional athletes, but there was only 2 weeks of camp before the first game with Portugal, and you know the lineups were changing. There were some glitches, right? So as much as there was, I think if you're used to looking at MLR games, you'd go like, oh my God, the cohesion is unlike a lot of things I've sort of seen, particularly at a higher pace, right? Higher velocity, all of these things are happening. But I think if you were there, from my perspective, it was these, like, I don't know if I want to sort of say like lucky in some way, but there were some elements of it where I'm like, thank God these guys are the athletes that they are. They're able to kind of make up for some of these small errors. And I also got excited about if this team can get a little bit more time together, like this train has real momentum, right? This looks like different rugby to me than what I had been seeing from prior USA matches, from certainly from some MLR things. I hope that this kind of excitement somehow formulates in, you know, what does 3 weeks of camp look like, or 4 weeks of camp look like? I've heard some things like a lot of these guys are, kind of like remotely monitored for weightlifting, right? They're not working out. They're not building those relationships. And I can tell you, I'm a former D1 athlete. I played college volleyball. Not the same game at all, but I can tell you that there's a lot to be said about like having intuition and feeling for like where your teammates are in space and time, let alone while someone's trying to kill you on the field, right? So
literally,
right. So I have a tremendous amount of grace, but I also see a tremendous amount of opportunity.
Yes, that.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, you both have touched upon some things that I think are very important and critical. One of them is that you mentioned, Paul, is that they really only have 2 weeks before the summer series kicked off, and we'll get into the series on the whole here in a moment. It was one of the surprises for me is that, and this is one of my first points, I thought that in this particular game, I was a little bit frustrated in spite of a great scoreline. I was a little bit frustrated by the fact that I felt like the Eagles left some points on the table. Yeah. And I would expect that, like I expected that in that game against Portugal for precisely the reason that Paul mentioned, not having much time in camp together, only having 2 weeks on the heels of the MLR final. I would expect that in game one, but then when you're on the third game of that 3-game stretch, now you've had not only those couple of weeks, but then you've had some additional intensive weeks of travel with one another. Some really intensive structures put in place. You're immersed in camp. I would have expected some of these opportunities for the Eagles to strike gold. I mean, and Scott Lawrence mentioned it. Scott's nothing if not honest at every time I've had a chance to speak with him. And he said he recognized there were some missed opportunities. He said this in his post-match comments, and two come to mind. One, the lost line out after a penalty in which we had an attacking opportunity inside the 10-meter. I think that was inside the first half. We didn't connect on the line out, and the turnovers created. And, again, it was an opportunity to score some 5 to 7 points on a try. And then the poor execution when we're close to our attacking 22 or right about there, the poor execution that led to the 7 points on the try intercept for Spain. That's where that execution, I would have expected something like that to happen in week one, not necessarily week 3. So I was a little frustrated by that. That being said, I think there were some strong takeaways from this game. One, what's our DNA? Like if I had to say to you guys, and I'm asking this question, I'm going to come back, but I'm going to ask each of you to respond. Up until this match, what is the DNA of our men's USA Eagles? What defines our style of play, would you say?
Ashley, what you got?
Well, I mean,
rephrase, please.
Yeah, so I can jump in a little bit here.
Yeah.
I can say that there is a lot of heart, there is a lot of effort there's a little bit of polish that's missing. And and you were talking about, the coming off MLR season. I mean, great. Iscaro was playing, against Wales for the Barbarians 3 weeks ago. He's traveling from Europe, right? The guy played, in all matches for USA. So talking about no breaks. I don't know where he is, health wise, but like he's taken a beating, and having to learn that many systems, that many, teams over, such a short period of time. Like, again, I think it's what can the expectations be at some level when maybe some of the investment, it isn't quite there yet. But I think that there's a lot of athleticism. I think it's a relatively young team when we're thinking about who is actually on the field. So if we're talking about building a roster that's gonna produce for the next 5 or so years, there's a lot of reason to believe that there's good health and youth out on the field. And so I found myself thinking about, gosh, I can't wait to know, I can't wait to see some matches in 27.
So what defines our style, like our style of play for you, Ashley? I mean, when you watch the Eagles, what kind of game can you
currently
expect
versus before the most recent cup? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I mean, organization. I feel like this is the most organized USA men's 15s team that I've watched in a while. And I will say I haven't been like this last rugby season. I have watched more international matches than I probably ever have before. I think a lot of it has to do with being introduced into the group but like also being just having constant access to, hey guys, there's a game on Friday. Are you watching? Like, I wasn't in that kind of environment. Like, I'm out in Utah. Yes, we have Utah rugby, but Utah isn't really well known for being like, we finally have an NHL team and blah, blah, blah. But it's not, people don't talk about sports constantly versus growing up in Chicago. I knew when every game was for every team, for every little thing. And so I can't, like this, but again, just having watched Chicago, having seen a bunch of the Chicago guys on the team, watching the different players from the MLR that I know, like there's a sense of organization involved in this. And I also feel that there's a strong piece of, leaving the egos at the door. Like they really all seem to be coming onto the same page and everyone kind of has the same goal. There's not this like room of, and again, I can't speak to what was before. I'm just like thinking about general stuff. Like you get a lot of these national teams, there's a lot of egos, you think about the World Cup for soccer that just happened and the egos all over world soccer. And it's very relevant in international sport. And I feel like this USA men's team, they're not in it because of the name on the back of the jersey. They're in it for the country on the front. So I feel like that is the DNA. And that's what we're seeing, despite that they've only had short periods of time to play together. They all kind of have the same vision because the World Cup's next year and the progression we're making towards that. So I'd say organization and, some sort of like humility, I guess, are kind of what I'm excited to, or what I've seen glimpses of and feel like if we can maintain that, that it'll, continue to carry on.
Well, I think the numbers prove out like what you're talking about, right? I mean, Spain had 27 missed tackles. We only had 13 missed tackles.
Yep.
We won 100% of our scrums to 75% for Spain. So there's athleticism in those numbers. There's discipline in those numbers. There's hard-nosed, play in those numbers. There's trust of your teammates. So I'm assuming that those guys out there, despite only having 2 weeks in camp to start, have figured out how to build rapport with each other at rapid pace. So there's I don't
Says
think
a
we
lot
ever
about
got
coaching.
Yeah, I think Rob, maybe you asked us for a grade at some point, and I think we maybe just
Not yet.
over that.
Soon.
We'll get to it. Not yet.
Not yet.
I want to talk about the Spain game a little bit because
He'll be very intentional when he does.
Yeah,
it.
100%. So, So the reason I asked that question is because I think when you look around, if you watch a lot of international rugby, you can kind of see every team has a certain DNA, things that they do well. And I think one of the things that the United States has done well under a Scott Lawrence regime has been the physicality. I think, Ashley, you're 100% correct in that they've really begun to have a lot more cohesion. There is some structure, there's some organization. Paul, you hit upon the set piece, which is part of that physicality. They really pride themselves on being successful in the scrum, really pride themselves on being having a quality line out, and their maul. Their maul success is really good. That equals physicality. And so the point I wanted to get to is the fact that for me, what I loved about this game is that they have the physicality, but they also showed that their kicking game was strong. Spain is traditionally a strong kicking team, as is Portugal. And I think in this game in particular, they did a better job with the ball off the boot. And I'm not just saying kicking from post. I'm talking about, kicking from hand. They did a lot better job kicking from hand than the Spanish did. There were a number of turnovers that were created through the high ball. There was great pressure by our wings, Perry Mayo and Mark O'Keefe on their back three to create some turnovers. I think we had some true turnovers that were deep inside the Spanish half that were awesome to see. So I think for me, the big takeaway out of this game is the ability to transition a little bit away from what our strength is, which is a physical game, a set piece game, a strong forward game, to a little bit more of a kicking game. I mean, we outkicked them. I thought I had it written down.
Well, we outkicked them by almost 500 meters, right? We were at 1,093 meters. They were at 628, right? I mean, it was
with 39 kicks and played at 23, and you're 100% right. Yeah.
I personally love seeing more kicking in the kicking game in the men's side, right?
It's a good thing Scott's not here. He would crucify you.
He would destroy me. But again, I feel like, women's rugby to men's rugby, I feel like men's rugby is always brute force, like the physicality piece of it. And there's this like finesse to the rest of the game and the integration of the backs. And so personally, I've always watching men's 15s. I'm like, just like there's intention. And so some of these fun, not necessarily USA, but MLR specific, some of these amazing chip kicks in for goals and the utilization of the booty a little bit more is I'm just excited. There's so much excitement around where we're going in this direction. So I'm glad we were out kicking it because it's
I have a non-player question, which is, and it directly relates to kicking. I am, as a fan, sitting in the stands, wondering why there isn't more of a bird in the hand mentality in rugby. Right? You've got the opportunity to put it between the sticks, get some points on the board, get some motion going, get some momentum. Right? And I just don't see a lot of that, and I don't know if it's Ashley, kind of the point that you're driving at, it's some kind of ego or something else there, or is there a part of strategy of rugby that I haven't figured out, which is when that decision to go with one or the other is the better option. But I think about some of the anthem games I've seen where I go, the number of kick opportunities would have changed the outcome of that game. If you just would have taken advantage of that and built slow and persistent, the outcome would have been different.
Are you talking about drop kicks in the middle of play, or are you talking more of the penalty kicks? Or both?
Both.
Yeah. There's a lot. I've been seeing more of the penalty kicks where you're taking those points in some of these matches. That's been something I haven't been used to, specifically in the MLR season. I saw a lot more of that. But Rob, go all you, man, fire away.
Well, I think it depends. In answer to the question, in a case like this where you're in a tournament and you're in a pool of a tournament and point differential matters, sometimes teams, rather than, you always see it in a final, a knockout style game. You'll see it in the World Cup in 2027. Teams will play strategically different with that penalty opportunity. They're going to play a little bit differently in a pool game than they will in a knockout stage game. Why? Because a pool game, points matter, right? You want to get the bonus point for tries. You want to get the point differential, and therefore sometimes that kick to corner is a better option because you can maul against a team and get 5 or 7 points and get and work towards the 4 bonus points, try bonus points, right? When you're in a knockout stage, those points don't matter. The only points that matter, you just got to win. You win by 1. That's all that matters. So sometimes getting those points from the boot are about building momentum. Like, hey, if we can get 3, okay, now we can build upon that. So I think that plays into it.
You get the ball back. That's the best part.
Yeah, you get the ball back. So but kicking from hand, when you're talking about kicking, kicking the high ball, forcing pressure on the back 3. It's all about territory, and it's all about what your wings are able to accomplish in their chase, right? There's a old adage that, will go on and on and on and on. And you'll hear it from commentators. It kicks only as good as its chase. And it's simply saying, look, if you can't put pressure on the defense with a high ball that your chase, your wings can get under, or your fullback can get under and contest, or even, make a tackle and a quick jackal. If you can't get that pressure, then you're just going to get a kickback, and the pressure is going to be back on you. So, it's good to see in this case. That's what I loved about this game. I think our kicking game, in play, took an important step, and it's no small part to 2 very good wings with a speed and pace on the outside with Mayo and Marco.
That's the key. You've got the speed, like the conditioning. Like there's
it was exciting to watch.
In there.
Yeah, it was exciting.
And not for nothing, I think too is like Mooneyham can do the same thing. And I think the big thing with those, Perry Mayo, while not tall, certainly could go up, climb up the ladder and get the ball. I think the same can be said about Mark O'Keefe, who's a little bit taller. And then of course, Mooneyham, when you put a guy like Mitch Wilson on the wing, he's playing fullback in this game, but when you put him on the wing, I just don't think he can apply that kind of pressure,
Fair.
So,
kind of depends on who's kicking the ball and where you're shuffling in the moment.
Exactly.
Totally. That makes sense. Like if your fullback's kicking, you've got access to both of your wings.
Right.
Great.
Right.
If one of your wings is kicking and you're using, that makes sense.
Yeah. But overall, I thought Ashley hit upon a good point. Like this team, and Paul, you said it earlier, this team showed some resilience, right? They were able to play through a yellow, and still I think maybe Spain scored 3 points under that yellow, which is a pretty good result when you're a man down for 10 minutes. I thought they showed a lot of resilience coming back, and that held true. All 3 games they came back from being down in the game, particularly in the first and the third game. They were down and really had to come back in the last little bit. So overall, I thought this is I was very happy with this match. I just think there were some opportunities that were missed. You saw Perry Mayo's strength. How about the miss pass from a lock from Brandon Harvey to score for Mitch Wilson's score, and Mitch redeemed himself from a bad outing and really played pretty well this match. So, and then of course, Don Bisek just lights out. So a lot of good things to take away from this match overall.
Yeah, I just want to sort of start with the last time these teams saw each other was July of last year, and the outcome was very different, right? It was 31-20.
Yeah.
So,
right. I'm glad you brought that up.
Right. So, that's
more evidence for progress.
Right. Exactly right.
Right. So it's great to see. All right. So we're kicking into that close to that hour match. We got about 12 minutes left or thereabouts. So let's turn our attention towards overall. Here we've had 3 matches. The U.S. is 3-0 in their pool, sitting in a really nice spot for this Nations Cup championship. Overall, let's give them a grade and support that grade. So I'm going to go to Paul first this time, and then Ashley, and then myself.
I'm gonna give them a solid B. Because there is room for improvement, but they are certainly not slacking. And again, I think there's a lot of players on that team that I am just continuing to be more and more impressed by. So I think there's more gas in that tank to say that there is, there is A-level play there, and I can't wait for October.
100%. Ashley, your thoughts?
I was going to go B minus for very similar reasons,
Ooh.
right? We've discussed there's the cohesion, there's progress, there's evolution, right? Which is what's getting us in there, but there is a lot of available opportunity for them to improve. Everything we've talked about over the last 49, 50 minutes or so, I think B minus, solid B minus. And again, I'm really excited. Like, I'm so excited. I cannot express with my eyeballs how excited I am to see the continuous, because every game, while frustrating, or it's improving, it's evolving, and they're really, back to weightlifting. They're technically kind of an in season. And when you go from an MLR season into an international season, you don't get your typical off season, which is when you do most of your lifting. And there's so much team bonding that happens in a weight room, and, back to being D1 athletes. There's so much that happens in those spaces. So while you're doing that during the season, it's not quite the same as really functioning in a true off season. So B minus.
Let me add this one sort of point in, right? Which is, we went from 16th to 14th, right, in 3 games. Italy, currently ranked 12th, beat England in 6 Nations. Like, these are, like, we're close. Like,
it's happening.
Yeah, like, this is not like sitting back in the 30s or the 40s, or just sort of, no, like, this is, that, and I think we all know that, like, top 10 rugby looks very different than 11 through 20. But you go,
doesn't matter. We're close.
A few of the. I mean, Wales was just in 12th, right? Wales might get a bad rep when they're playing in the 6 Nations, but, like, they're legit rugby, right? Like, that's nothing to be. They took it to the Barbarians. A couple weeks back, right? So to be sitting comfortably in 14th, hey, that's progress. So,
well, and I think that's a great point. Super important to the overall. For me, I'd also give them a solid B. And for me, I thought the results were great, but sometimes your results don't actually reflect what you would like to see in your production. Yeah. Again, it goes back to what Ashley said. The cohesion's great. There's progress, but there's also room to grow. And I think Scott would agree with that. But ultimately, when you come down to it, you're at the top of the table in your tier 2 Nations Cup pool. You've now you beat Portugal. Now you're winning that series over the last 4 games, 2 games, to 1 loss, to 1 tie, and you're in the Spanish 4 games, 3-1. So you can't sniff at that, right? And remember, both those teams qualified for Rugby World Cup 2023. We know Spain was disqualified, but they qualified for it originally, and we did not. So
regardless,
regardless. And so that speaks to Ashley's point, right? is that's progress, right? That's progress. I would like to see our penalty count. I was super happy against Portugal, and really you can't sniff at having 10 penalties in the last 2 games. So the fact that we're staying it's been said by former internationals, and I think Mike Petrie comes to mind. He says, if you can keep at the international level, keep your penalty count under 10 and under, that's a success. And we've done that throughout this leg of the tournament. So I like to see that. We just need to be more clinical. And I think, to Ashley's point, we can do that. They're going to have 2 weeks off, and they come back to camp, and then they have, a series of games, which I'll get to in a minute. But they have a series of games, and there's opportunities to build more cohesion. And they did last year. I think they built more cohesion after the summer series, and they really, really made a huge leap as they went into that fall series, which they have the opportunity to do here. And I can't wait to see it. That's my B mark. I'm going to ask you both this. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to run down the Eagles' tests for the rest of 2026. Here's my question in closing to both of you, right? What do the Eagles have to do for 2026 to be successful? You can give me a record. You can give me a key win or a key game. That's kind of the earmark for this 2026 season, whatever you want, what for you would have to happen for the Eagles to be successful. So let me give you a rundown on what's going to happen. On August 15th, at Inter Miami Stadium, we play Argentina. Okay. That's in Florida, folks, for those of you who don't know. Miami's in Florida. All right. Then we play Japan, let's see, on September 12th in Hanazono. And that's a critical game there as part of the Pac Nations Cup, if I'm not mistaken. And then we play on the 19th. We either play Fiji or Canada. Okay. And then we get into September. Here's our run in September and November. Australia 15's at Judas. Ashley's going to be there from what we gather. No?
Probably.
Probably.
Just got to book the ticket. I got to get through the international contest in Baltimore first. But
there we go. And then the week following on the 30th, Australia 15's once again. And I didn't write down where that was at, shamefully. And then a TBD as to where, but or as to when, excuse me, we play Georgia, and then we play Romania. That's at the beginning of November, and then we play Hong Kong, China, to round out the fall test series. That'll probably start the first weekend of November and go to the third week of November. So, we have a slate of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 games there. What, in your minds, dictates success? Ashley, kick us off.
I think I want to see like an average of these markers we've kind of discussed throughout the, staying sub 10 on penalties, right? Play a clean game, play a good game. I want to see our win point differential be a little higher. These really close games, I think, again, we're leaving points on the board. So I think if we can get into an average of being at least a try above on wins, I think that would be helpful. I'll be curious to see how that Australia game goes. I think it's going to be a momentum thing for us. Odds on that game. I wouldn't be super high on what we look like there, but if we can really put up a fight and stay in that, I don't know. I think that's the pivotal game. We got to stay sub 10 on penalties each game, and get a higher point differential on our wins. And then I think that game is, and it's right in the middle too, of that fall series. So I think that's going to be our, we'll say, momentum driver.
Yeah, that's good. There's certainly a part of that I am fully in agreement with you. I think particular on the composure part, right? If we essentially said that, cards are a proxy for composure level, then what we saw is that we had a yellow card in each of the last 3 matches. That can have a shift in what it looks like on the field. You can sense energy in the stands change. I think there's a couple players out there that I think I've watched them enough to know, like, when they're working their way towards a card. Right, you're like, your
behavior is predictable. Can we not?
Yeah, exactly. I know that guy grabs a collar first, and then within 10 minutes he's going to get right. And I've done some stats from the bench, from the stands there, where I've said, like, is there a try scored or point scored by the opposition within X number of minutes of a yellow card, and the patterns are easy to see, right?
Yep.
So I think there's a lot there. I think I would probably want to say something like, controlling the ball more, but then I look at, like, so in our game with Spain, right, we had 60% possession rate, where with Zimbabwe had us by, I think, 10% in possession. So that clearly wasn't the differentiator, in that game. I think one of the things I also like seeing here in these last 3 matches is the diversity of scoring by who on the team is scoring and how many points are coming from each player, right? So when we're positioning ourselves as, 4, 5, 6 different people on the field can score, right? That's got to change the psychology of the game. So it's not just like, we need to watch that guy. It's, we need to watch half of this team or all of this team because they can score. In particular, when we're seeing that, they're bringing a different lineup, right? It's not a static lineup to each one of these matches, and we're seeing different folks play. So I think that's got to build some confidence, and you hope that confidence contributes to composure.
Love that.
Yeah, I like a lot of those and that analysis and a lot of those thoughts about the process of the game. And you kind of mentioned that, use that word early, Ashley, but both of you guys are talking about the process by which we're going to measure the Eagles and their success. It's not about wins or losses. Neither one of you said, well, they got to be, 5-4 or 5-3 or whatever. You guys are talking about just ways that we want to see the Eagles grow, which I think is a fresh and honest perspective. For me, with 8 games, look, I'm not worried about the Argentina game. Would I like to see us, I think just keeping that somewhat close and developing our game is what's critical for me there. It kind of, that one comes down to process, as do the games against the Australia 15s. It's really about, can we, minimize our mistakes? Paul, you talked about penalties. Can we keep, on top of the penalties? Can we avoid the yellow cards so that we kind of don't let the momentum get too far out of our grasp, which is what I think you were kind of referring to as you talked about, players committing penalties. But I earmark for me 4. So first of all, I think that Romania and Hong Kong, China are must wins. If we play Canada, for me, that's a must win. ABC, always beat Canada. Although I think really we're probably going to face Fiji there. I mean, For me, I'm looking at the Japan game. If we play Fiji, the Fiji game, and of course the Georgia game. And those games, I think one of you guys mentioned it, keeping the scoreline close. Don't let the game get out of hand. I think when you talk about Georgia, Paul, you mentioned it. They're right at that cusp of being a tier 1, tier 2 nation, right? Japan is right in that tier 1, tier 2 stratus, as is Fiji, right? So, those are the games that if we can win, man, it really says something about where our game is at. If we can keep it close, it says a lot about the growth and the places where we can go to as we head into 2027. So for me, those are what I'm looking at. I think a reality is probably 4-4, truth be told. But isn't that what we want? We want to test ourselves against better opposition to see where we're at. We also want to be able to develop our game and grow our depth of our roster by playing some teams that are in the same tier that we're at. So those are my thoughts.
Yeah. So I liked a lot of things that you just said. I think that the Argentina game is going to be an interesting one. Obviously, it's playing their XV team. I don't know what that does to the kind of what the guys' expected outcome is. I think that they're like most top tier athletes I know want to win regardless of who's on the field. So I want to see that. I want to see that kind of playing it like it's more. I think I bought, we're going to see Argentina, Fiji play in World Cup in 2027. I'm excited to see Fiji. Fiji is great rugby to watch. So there's nothing about that team that isn't anything other than, super athletic, dynamic, fun to watch rugby, particularly when we're, comparing that to, the playing style of Argentina. But I think there's lots of reasons to be optimistic about our future. And I think that us coming away from Nations Cup by maybe gaining another place or two, in the world rankings, which are our possibilities, and, putting us right there in that 11th, 12th kind of place with an Italy, with a Georgia. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment. So, that what do they say about, like, you judge you're the average of your 5 best friends, right? I don't know if that rule applies to rugby, but you, in some ways, you are measured by the company you keep, right? So let's start measuring ourselves by Italy and Georgia, right?
Better company, right?
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
It's about not being the smartest person in the room. It's about being the person willing to learn the most, I think that's relevant in all athletics. And I think USA, again, because of how much opportunity exists and is kind of just sitting there waiting to see what they're going to do. I think that's super relevant. Do the game, learn the things, and evolve like that. I think and again, under leadership, it says a lot about coaching right now. Good things are happening. So
100%. And you guys talking about Paul, you mentioned the future, and shamefully enough, in around the pitch, I forgot to talk about the future, as we have an eye on 2031. But I want to throw a shout out Wags and Luke Lewis, two mates of mine from the Chicago area, took the U18s down to South America. And I was going to mention some great stuff out of them, 3 matches. I think they've come away with 2 wins and a loss, if I'm not mistaken. So good on them, developing the youth, developing those guys that we hope to see, at least in some respects, here by 2031. So congratulations to them. And also, I wanted to throw a big shout out to the USA Women's U20s, again, talking about the future. They're down in South Africa right now. They just won their first match against the South African U20s, 47-12. Just this last weekend, they play another game here on the 24th and a rematch. Hopefully they can go 2-0. That would be a great result. So a lot of good things. I think really the high performance pathway is doing a lot to really develop for the future. And hopefully we just see things getting better and better. But man, we're just over an hour here on the Rugby Rant podcast show. And I want to thank our 2 guests, Paul and Ashley, for joining me and stepping up. Shout out to my podcast partner, Scott, whose porch roof just fell down. So that's why he couldn't join us. Yeah, that's why he couldn't join us. The dude just has horrible luck. Like, he had cows up in his lawn because, he had a fence break. So he had cows in his lawn. Like, they probably nibbled on the porch railings or something like that, or the porch posts. And that's why they've fallen now 3 years on. He's got it. So
that's a story that us in North Carolina tell about our property. I didn't realize that this was like a fancy Chicago cow thing. I didn't know this was. I didn't know this was a thing.
Yeah.
All right, feeling better about where I live.
Well, he's in upstate New York, so
Gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so anyway,
definitely not a Chicago story, though, for sure.
No.
Illinois story, sure. Chicago story,
yeah, no, not so much. Yeah, so but poor Scott unfortunately couldn't join us. But I want to thank you guys for stepping up to the plate. It's been a lot of fun, and you guys always have a open door to join the Rugby Rant whenever. I know you both are very busy in your respective pursuits, but it's been great to having you on. You guys have really showed out and showed up. And Ashley, a veteran, and Paul, a newcomer. It's great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for joining.
Thanks, Hammer.
All right. And with that, folks, we're going to wrap up episode 243 of the Rugby Rant podcast show, where we aim to grow rugby one fan at a time. And it's because of fans like Ashley and Paul that we have continued to keep things going, because we want to hear from you fans. And drop us a line, drop us a comment if you want to join the show. Throw me a shout out at Rob Hammerschmidt, Facebook. I think I'm Blaze, BLAZERGB7 on X and on Instagram. So throw me a shout if you feel like showing up and showing out like these two have. Thank you so much for joining, guys. And that'll put a bow on the present that is the Rugby Rant podcast show. We'll see everybody at the next.